Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon, and you're listening to a podcast which is all about the Irish League. We are almost at the halfway point of the top flight season, and to mark the occasion, my guests and I will be picking our best 11 of the campaign so far. It was business as usual this weekend for our top three, all of them won out, creating an even bigger gap between them and the rest of the league. Elsewhere, Glenavon completed their rout of the bottom six with their fifth win in a row, where Dungannon will hope their ascension will deliver similar results after outlasting Loughgall at Lakeview to make it two in a row. Plenty to chat about on this week's edition of Kicking Match. And we're into what I feel like could be the most ramshackle podcast of the season so far, maybe ever. It's not because of the guests that I have. I just think of just the mood that we're in, the time of the season. Joining me in my living room, we're doing another live in-person episode. It's the boys from the Waffle. Hello, Gareth, and hello, Conor.
Hello, Pete. How are you?
I am doing absolutely great. Jumping straight in. So I'm sure you saw this over the weekend. I know that I have a bit of a, I'm going to use this word, not very likely at all, heritage when it comes to fantasy football, particularly of the Irish League kind. As you might not be aware, I was the Carling Sunday Life Manager of the Month for August, I think, 2013. I won it 2 years later in September 2015. There's no prize, there's no award, but just remember, if you're sitting listening to this and thinking, does this boy know anything about Irish League football? Manager of the Week, game week 18 of the NIFL Fantasy Football League season 2023-2024. Tweeted out on everything. Best team of the week, my friends.
Huge. Congrats.
Thank you very much. I know you were going to say that, but I just wanted to help avoid the the awkwardness of like, should I bring it up now, should I bring it up later? Let's just lead. I win for that week. No plaudits. I think I'm up to maybe 6th. I've been hankering around kind of the top 10 for a while, in and out, and my team was very much anchored in my belief in Glenavon. I know it's hard to kind of team who's won 4 in a row make it 5. Was it a big step that I made there? But Niall Quinn and Jack Malone stepped up alongside some big hitters which we'll talk on this podcast, because I'm sure if people have read the title, and I know you have, I don't know why they wouldn't listening to this, that you'll see that during this episode, all three of us together are going to pick our very own team of the half season. We're not at the half season yet, that'll be next week, but look, calendars have to work out here, all right? So we're going to pick the team, if the season ended right now, who we think the best team of the season so far is, player by player, team by team. But of course, we've got a game week to talk about first. And unfortunately, we're going to have to start with the game that you're at, Gareth.
Yes, we are. Cliftonville Crusaders. Oh, goodness, don't even know where to start. No, like, Cliftonville were absolutely fantastic. Conor was there as well. We were in the home end. Great view, by the way, just behind that goal. But yeah, I mean, only one team turned up, really, and it was Cliftonville. They got the best over their rivals again this season.
A second time, and both of them have been pretty secure, been pretty confident in their victory. Are you starting to worry there's a bit of a hoodoo bubbling underneath?
It seems that way. 3-0, 3-0. I don't know. Boxing Day is the next one. It's always it's funky. It'll be back there as well again, so going to be difficult, but believe in the hoodoo, unfortunately.
Conor,
hello.
Hard thoughts. What do we think what was the key to victory for Cliftonville?
I think playing against a team that didn't really try made it a lot more useful and easier for them. Cliftonville are a great team to watch. I think we all know that. I think that's very, very obvious. And they just looked like such a better team. They wanted it way more. The only time that things maybe got exciting or maybe seemed sort of like there could be maybe a bit of an upset was when Paul Heatley swung that arm and everything just went mental. And I was like, fantastic, this is why I'm here. And then Cliftonville 3-0 into the sunset. Ben Wilson looking great. So, yeah.
It's one of the few, while the games are happening at 3 o'clock, first half controversy that was already all over Twitter. People were getting very hot and bothered about it on the forums. They were like, I cannot believe that this is happening. For those who haven't seen it, it was at a set piece where Crusaders were ready to fire the ball in, and there was a bit of a to and fro between Heatley and I can't remember who the defender was, but Heatley kind of turned round while he was His back was at the torso of the Cliftonville defender, and as he did that, his left arm came up and his elbow swiped across the Cliftonville player as Paul Hickley just protested and did a wee spin and was like, look, something was happening to me. I was being pushed or I was being spun. Not to get into the technical like MMA here, but a connection was made. And if the referee saw that efficiently, and as many fans were calling out for, you'd probably say it wasn't, but you would believe that's a red card, isn't it?
To be fair, I love when that kind of thing happens. Like, that to me is worth more than a goal. I just think it's just action. And then Paul Hickley is just so hated there. He walked off the pitch underneath that family stand, just pointing at the Crusaders badge, being like, I don't care what you say. And I was just like, this is what it's all about.
There's something about the Irish League and panto villains.
Yeah.
And many teams have their own. And for sure, Paul Hickley plays up to that when it comes to the Cliftonville fans. I'm sure Joe Gormley is exactly the same for the Cruise fans. But it didn't impact the result of the game. Ultimately, Cliftonville had all the firepower and they made sure of the victory with many of their big guns. Even Ben Wilson, he didn't start, but he came on and he got a very Ben Wilson kind of goal. So all of their weapons on show, showing how dangerous they can be. We talked last week about how this game at Solitude felt like it was the start of a decline for Crusaders after this wonderful start, and there's been a whole load of injuries there. After this game, where does this set up Crusaders' rest of their season? What's the aim? It's clearly to get Europe, but like a lot of teams, the title seems completely out of reach now, even this early. And sometimes when that's your high-end goal and your medium-end goal is the only thing in sight, yes, it's something to push for, but when you're feeling a bit down and out, you can start racking up these disappointing results. And we've seen a few already. How can they lift themselves up for the rest of the season?
I think if they try to be positive about it, they obviously have to believe they're still in the title race. It's hard to see that now. To me, it almost looks like it's a 3-horse race now. Based on maybe not even the points and where people are, but based on how teams are performing. I think it could be another. Like, do they put everything in the hat for the Irish Cup again? Try to make it 3 in a row. I mean, it does just feel like that is what maybe is going to happen, what they're going to do. I mean, there's obviously a lot of football to be played, Pete, but I can't see them in the title race now. I just don't think the performances have been there.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this word out here, and it's a dreaded one sometimes this early in the season, but is this season potentially a rebuild season for the Cruise, or do the Cruise, they don't rebuild, they reload?
That's a big question. I don't know. I mean, is obviously an aging squad. There's a few younger players come in the summer. You've got like Lloyd Anderson came back from Carrick, James Teelan, very good signing from Newry. They've maybe not been getting the minutes that they want. The more senior players or the sort of older players are still keeping their spots. But I think as it goes on, as the season goes on, it might become more evident that those younger players are going to have to make an impact for Crusaders. I think January will be interesting to see if they change anything then. But probably realistically, in my opinion, it wouldn't be until the summer you would start to see a full rebuild or, changes in that sense. But who knows? Myself
and other guests have pinpointed that perhaps the issue for the Cruise this year have been keeping goals out at the most important end. Has this really been an injuries problem, or what's led to this not so tight defence?
I think Jimmy Gallagher obviously is going to be the obvious answer. It's a huge miss. He came in, fantastic signing, and could easily still be playing his trade at Linfield. But hope he's on the mend. A horrific injury he sustained is going to keep him out for the season. I think that plays a part. But even when you look back at some of the European games, I don't think Jimmy even featured in some of them. And Cruise look good, they look strong. So I can't exactly pinpoint what's gone wrong there. But I know on Saturday when we were watching the game, we'd seen the likes of Robbie Weir kept dropping into defence. Probably not his strongest position. So I just think, like you said, a few injuries have knocked things out a bit. But I feel like it's the old, if you start losing games, you start losing confidence, and I feel like that's maybe as well.
That's what
what's played in the Crusaders season.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to see as well. That it's not just the fact that they're having to rely on some players who haven't had that responsibility. When you don't have Lecky starting every week at the minute, Heatley and others like that, Callagher, you are going to have to. Someone's supposed to fill that void, but outside of that, they just look like they're turtling a wee bit. And when the going gets tough, it hasn't been going their way. But while Crusaders try and pick up the pieces for Cliftonville, it's another big victory from them. It's a great moral victory, of course, winning against their rivals. But when they see there's a big gap between themselves and Linfield and Larne, they need to keep on winning. And right now, they are doing it through scoring so many goals. But you look at the table, they're not conceding many either. A 3-0 victory feels like a complete performance here.
Yeah, perfect. No, you're right. And you and I, Pete, spoke at the start of the year, and we were like, Crews are going to win it. There was there was a lot of confidence, and I think most people were like, the Reds just do not look good, and there wasn't too much certainty around, was it the right appointment? Who was Ben Wilson? Like, who are these people coming in? It's great that we can apologise and be like, we got that wrong.
I feel like this is coming as well. Yeah, I don't think the Reds are finishing 7th this year.
No, for sure. And I think that, like, looking how Cliftonville have been performing, like we've been saying, they don't concede many. They're looking really, really good. Addis, Addis is funny because he obviously started his career at Carrick, went to the Glens, Ballymena and such. It feels like he's really only now found his club. And he did obviously have good performances along the way. I remember seeing him score a hat-trick for Carrick when he was playing as a striker. But now, like, Cliftonville have songs about him. Like, he will go down a legend at that club.
And he had a great game on Saturday, had a pretty decent season so far. But while that was a great result for Cliftonville, the other teams at the top are also keeping their charge going. Another Friday night victory for Larne at home against a Glentoran team who are very much out of sorts, but they were there to be beaten. 2-1 was the result in the end. It's their 6th win in a row now for them. Like, they look like they've got the pedal down and nothing seems to stop them. They look stout defensively. They're not completely free-flowing up top, but they're getting the job done, and the points are racking up, and it just feels like what a purple patch at the minute. Long may it continue if you're a fan of the Inverreds.
Mm-hmm. They've been looking very good. Certainly they've made Friday nights their just time to shine, and they've been looking very, very impressive. Don't concede too many, like you're saying. I think that they've gone through a wee bit of a rebuild. When you look at the players who left last season, Jeff Hughes, I know he was out for a bit, but it's such a big, important player to have in that changing room. And they've gone through bringing in some new players, embedding them into the team. They're looking good, and it's exciting. Yes, you're right, Friday night, a win against Glentoran, very impressive. We never know which Glentoran team seem to be turning up, so on another night the Glens go there and win, and I'm not surprised. But yeah, Larne are looking like they want to hold on to the Gibson Cup.
It's taken a while to get themselves up to this speed, and squad is such an important aspect of it. I feel as though last season their charge to the title was built on not many injuries, which meant that all their key players were doing the business. You can see the improvements that they've added to the squad. I think Levi Ives was such a brilliant signing. He's been a real key cog to this team. I'll be talking a lot about him later. But in an area of the team where you thought, well, I've got Michael Glynn, that's totally fine. They've had to deal a lot this year with rotation up top, not particularly wanted rotation. They want to have Bonus and Ryan up there with O'Neill and others fighting, but that hasn't been the case. But who pops up? Paul O'Neill. Joe Thompson got a number of goals recently, and he's been a key part. So it was Andy Ryan and Leroy Miller who got the goals, and I thought they looked like winners from early on as soon as they got the early goal, and they're getting a lot of early goals. It was the same in the Cliftonville game and the rest. This seems to be working for them. They come out of the traps fast, they get the goal, and they never look too worried at the back.
No, certainly don't. I think they've been very impressive. Obviously, maybe earlier in the season they had a few bumps along the way, but I think that squad, Pete, is just incredible. One player gets injured, goes out, another player steps in, you're talking about the same kind of quality, same level. It kind of remind me of like Man City, you know, when a player gets injured or something, you just look to the bench and you're Bernardo Silva's sitting there or something. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of what Larne are this season. And you know when January comes, they're going to add more because that's the pattern.
It worked so well for them last year.
Yeah.
Why not follow that same blueprint?
Yeah.
And a team who's probably going to dip in as well if money comes available is Linfield, who have looked the strongest they've been in probably even 2, maybe 3 years, even during their title runs. I think this is one of the better patches that they have had. Of course, the only team that's gotten their way has been Larne this season, and I think everyone could predict that they were going to get 3 points against one of the worst teams in the league in Ballymena at home. There's a stat there during the week that Ballymena haven't won at Windsor Park since 2004, and it's a stat I don't think anybody's really surprised by. But in many ways, that game was one of those where fellas with the Linfield team were just lining up to get the goal, and unfortunately, how many times have we talked about how when one goal goes in against Ballymena, the head drops and many follow, and it's a great day for Matthew Fitzpatrick. He gets 2 for himself. Other players like Cal McLean, Kirk Miller, they jump in, and it felt like pedestrian at times for them. I don't think people expect Ballymena to get points away to Windsor. In many ways, some of Ballymena's best performances have been, a trier, but it doesn't work out against the top teams. I wouldn't describe this performance as that. I think it was Linfield showing how great and how brilliant their squad is.
Flexing their muscles, I think.
Totally.
Like they just look good. It is kind of funny because I think every year it's like, oh, Linfield aren't looking as good as usual, and then they just show that they actually are just great, and we all feel bad again for saying that. They look good. A lot of impressive players I'm sure we'll talk about later on. Joel Cooper has been outstanding. Anytime a player in the Irish League is like being chatted about to be in the Northern Ireland squad is fantastic. So we'll see. Ballymena on the other hand, I've seen them a few times this year. Other than we watched them beat Carrick, which came out of nowhere. They've been more recently they've been able to put a bit of a run together, but they are going to be busy in January. I can tell you. For all the unfortunate reasons, they're probably going to be trying to do what Portadown did last January by trying to get a few more players in, but of course do what Portadown didn't do and survive. So it's one of those things where ultimately, yes, it's December pretty much now if you're listening to this, and they've only got a few more weeks to go, but there's plenty of games, and even now when you're at that bottom part of the table, they're not out of it, but every game counts, and we've seen now Glenavon getting up and out of it. The next team we're going to talk about now, Dungannon, getting a few points. It only takes a few victories to get yourself up and out, and if you let this month just pass you by and then you wait for the players to come in, are they going to bed themselves in? And perhaps Roddy McAree is looking at his Dungannon side right now where finally I've got this team, because there was a few players came in during the summer, and we all remember how fantastic they started, pulling it back against Larne, and everybody thought, oh, this Dungannon team's going to be different this season. They regressed to the mean, back to what they are, but in the past 2 weeks, they've got 2 wins out of 2. Their recent victory, probably their most impressive one so far, away against Loughgall in the late kickoff on Saturday. 2-1 they went out, and it's thanks to a Larne player, Matthew Lusty. Another great weekend for him. We all talk about these bottom sides needing goals, needing a goal scorer to help get them out of the mire. Right now, Dungannon have that, and his name is Matthew Lusty. And bodes well for Larne as well. No, for sure. Like you're talking about Man City, like, and think of the amount of players that they send out on loan. And I'm sure, like, whenever I play Football Manager and I'm bringing Ballymallard through the leagues, I eventually get to a stage where I'm loaning everyone else out. All my good up and coming 15 and 16 year olds are on loan at Dungannon and scoring for Dungannon every week. So I know how they feel. I know how Matthew Lusty feels. I like to see it. Dungannon started very well, like you're saying. They certainly seem to be a different team under Rodney. I've seen them once or twice this season. They seem to put up more of a fight as opposed to last year, where it was like, maybe try and keep a clean sheet. If we don't keep it, we'll just try and score. Now they definitely are more cohesive, I think, as a team, which is great to see. Some unbelievable players in there who will, but that doesn't happen overnight. That's one thing I feel as though has been a frustration for Roddy McAree, because he's trying to find his team, and sometimes there's a little upper and then it goes down, and sometimes it takes a while to go, okay,
that doesn't actually work. It worked here, but we need to move a player into a different position. I don't know if Lusty was an absolute nailed on starter at the start of the season. He is now, and you can see the difference in their play. You have to just see how that second goal, so direct, and sometimes particularly in that area of the table, you just have to do it. And when you have players who have a bit of speed, a bit of whip like Lusty, you need to use that to your advantage. It's about highlighting your strengths rather than trying to build up some players' weaknesses at times. But I want to mention that goal because I need to give a bit of credit to Ben Gallagher, who did a wee step over and move in his own half and then spread the pass out to Lusty and give him all the speed in the world. But for Loughgall, everyone's talking about them. Everyone says how brilliant and lovely they are. It's strange to think a defeat like this is like disappointing for them. I guess these games were going to come, but you know, you don't want to be giving points to other teams that you consider like bottom six rivals, but in turn they can't get two down from, was it 2 losses in a row now?
No, they certainly can't. I mean, Loughgall have gave us so much this season, the effort levels they've put in, and there's a lot of those players that were playing last year and they've made the step up, and you know, they don't look out of place at all. You know, I've seen them a couple of times and I think they're really enjoyable team to watch as well. They play nice football. But as you say, you know, the defeats were always going to come. I don't think anyone expected them to go undefeated or, you know, anything like that. But I think the problem for Loughgall might be that there's almost an expectancy now, given how they started the season. And that can be maybe a bit of can knock their confidence a bit, or, you know, because they're thinking, maybe we didn't expect the season to go just this well for us, but a couple of defeats, does it keep going? Do you lose the confidence? But I hope they can bounce back because they've been a terrific watch.
It's a nice problem to have, I imagine, if you're Dean Smith, to be worrying about how can I get this team back to where they are rather than I need to get something out of this team because we haven't been there all season. But I guess he knew coming into this league that there was going to be ups and downs and he was going to have to find different things out of his toolbox to try and get this team staying in the league. And I think he's just trying to get as many points as possible so that their survival can be signed, sealed, delivered. And with a lot of teams in the bottom six, some of them finding their resolve, that then makes that less of a nailed on thing. And one of those teams who is finding their rhythm absolutely is Glenavon. 5 wins in a row. Now, I've been trying to pinpoint what it is about this run. It's not new players because there's been no transformation when it comes to the transfer window. It's just been about McDonald trying to get these players working together, a few different ideas, and right now it's working. Goals was the big thing. Even when they were winning, they weren't doing it by a big margin. It was a big margin on Friday night when they go to Newry and win out 3-0. This is the Glenavon from last season getting their mojo back.
Yeah, you're right. It's actually been great to see, I think, because we've all watched and witnessed what's happened to Glenavon from the start of the season in the first couple of weeks, and Gary leaving, which I think still is like a wee bit of a scar. Like, I'm still just looking around the league, I'm like, where is Gary? Like, he just was great to see. Stephen O'Donnell is a manager that will have a big future for sure. I think he's probably younger than all of us. Like, he is a very, very, I just think he's a very bright future. Even at Dundalk, he was at Warren Point before, and he just seems to have this just way he can manage a football team. Like, you're talking about Glenavon now, hasn't made any changes, and they're unrecognisable from the team at the start of the year.
He was hyped up as this man who's going to come in and he's going to have tactical ideas. You know, some managers come in and they're hyped up as motivators, they're wheeler dealers. What I'm hearing from people is this guy's gonna have a tactical eye and he's going to get the best out of these players. And right now he's finding roles for the likes of Jack Malone, who wasn't always starting, Niall Quinn coming into the team. He's a key player now, and he always was going to be, but you have to find that position and place in the team. And 5 wins in a row, what a streak. Like, any team would love that. And if you got the form table up, they're right up there with Lard. I don't think they expect to continue this. You know, ultimately the teams they've been playing against have all been in and around the bottom six, if all of them haven't been, you know, quote unquote bottom six teams. So I'm sure if you're a Glenavon fan, you're thinking, I want to test this team against a top six side, see if we can keep this going. For Newry, it's a frustrating defeat. Again, a bit of poor defending, let you down, and similar to Loughgall, it's just about trying not to get in too much of a rut. You kind of dust yourself down and go again. But in turn, you only have so many games, especially at home, against bottom 6 sides. And this is another one that has come and gone without any points to your total.
Yeah, I know. I think as we look at the table, it is in that bottom 6 teams that sort of soar for a while and then come down. And the likes of Loughgall, like you're speaking about, they've put points on board early. But now it's Glenavon who are chasing them. Carrick are always in and around there. For Newry, I do think there's a nearly the bottom 3 in Newry, Dungannon and Ballymena. That's the real little table there. You know, one of them's definitely going down, one of them's going to a playoff. You got to win those home games there. For Newry, I mean, Newry can make their home ground a bit of a fortress. I think there is a bit of a transition there. You know, Darren Mullen was pivotal to that club. He's not there anymore, and it's not probably the same. But on any given day, they can put a result in, Newry.
Now they need to find their own little run in the same way that Dungannon, no matter how many it is with the 2 Loughgalls earlier, when you actually look at it now, Dungannon have a 5-point gap between themselves and the bottom 2 sides. Loughgall, it's 10 plus, so it'll come from somewhere. Again, they could probably do with a bit more health in some vital areas of the team, and perhaps a run in the same way that Glenavon had, where they can stretch their legs out, get a bit more confidence. But there's 12 teams in this league, and ultimately they all can't stay in it. So it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a fight. And I don't think many people expected much different from Newry. It's still a team who's establishing themselves. They've lost some players, they've brought some in. So a disappointing result, but these will come. The final game we haven't talked about is Coleraine against Carrick. I, in jest, predicted a bit of a goal fest. It didn't come, but it came very close to being a victory for Carrick Rangers. They still get out of the Coleraine Showgrounds with a point. I guess sure, King and his men will take it, but it's little margins like this are the difference. Again, it's a poor start from Coleraine, and they're chasing the game throughout. They feel as though they should have won it with a last-minute goal, which is then chalked off for a perceived foul. It's a result that probably suits Carrick better than Coleraine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Stuart is the king of the castle when it comes to it. You know, the funny thing about Carrick is you have no idea what Carrick are going to do. Each Saturday, I thought, you know, seeing Coleraine over the last couple of weeks, they've begun to look a wee bit more impressive and get bigger results against bigger teams. And here Carrick come, who honestly you've no idea. Carrick could have gone there and won 5-0, and I would have been like, that is classic Carrick.
Absolutely.
Or lost 5-0, and you're like, oh, that's also Carrick. So yeah, for Coleraine, I don't know. You know, they seem to sit around the middle of the table. Coleraine are one of those teams, like when we're talking about the Cruise earlier on, where it's like, and maybe Glenavon will throw in there now, where it is about cups. You know, it has to be, or else how do you measure nearly the success here?
Let's talk about the goals in particular. I always love a good free kick goal. It just feels so satisfying, but also so frustrating when you are on the receiving end, when your team's on the receiving end. You start going, oh, why did you foul? You know, they're so dangerous from that. It's far out, and it's a wee bit of a ripper from Glendinning. But defence has never been particularly a strength of Carrick Rangers, and you probably say they hold on to this after McDaid gets the leveller.
I think when you see in your app that brings up the goals that Rhys Glendinning scored, you think it's probably a tap-in or something. Then you go to the clip on BBC Sport and you watch it and you go, oh my goodness, that is unbelievable.
Like top bins.
It was unreal.
Yeah, and like I think I would do a lap on the pitch if that was me. You know, like it's not. We've all seen some big goals there, particularly free kick. I'm thinking of the big Johnny Black one from over a decade. When I don't know, the video was like barely in 240p. Yeah. But like it's up there with one of my favorite goals of the season so far.
It actually, it's so funny because like you probably know, like you sit on a Saturday and you'll get notifications through, or you'll check at half time, and I think bizarrely enough to be like, oh, Rhys Glendinning scored, like that is a bit of a collector's item in itself. This is a moment in time that I don't think any of us should ever forget. Like, this is a moment of this season that we have to talk about.
It's definitely going to be the goal that we're going to see in some sort of highlights package and go, remember that goal?
Yeah.
That was class.
Yeah.
That was class. So, yeah, again, Coleraine have just been up and down and everywhere, kind of in the same way that Carrick's been, and 1-1 draw. Probably should have seen it from a mile away, really.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. You're right. I know, and they nearly knock it at the end. Like you're saying, I think on another day that goal maybe counts, but we're not here to talk about that.
Right, we're going to add some formats and fun to this little gathering around my kitchen table with the boys from the Waffle. And now that we have done all the games from this week, we will be previewing in a little bit all the games that are coming up next week. But before we do that, we are at the 17/18 games played so far marker. Almost at 19 games. We've almost at the halfway point of the season. And with that, I thought it'd be good to have his round, and for my little birthday treat to myself, we could sit here and we could chat about what we think has been the team of the season so far. So I put it to you guys and said, look, you can make this up whatever way you want. I've pretty much picked it based on who I think are the best players. I haven't been like really precious about if I've got a centre midfielder or if they really play out wide or something like that, but I've tried to keep it to what I think is probably the best 11 best players in broadly their position, their area. And I guess when you get higher up the pitch, it's a bit more muddled. So I look forward to people having a go at me. So for yourselves, I gave you any formation you wanted. What did you go for?
We've got the classic 4-3-3.
Certainly a version of that, an inversion.
It's a
maybe.
version. Some players might have to take up a different role, but they'll be happy doing it when they see who they're playing with.
All players have attributes, you know what I mean? It's not like you can't play any position. It's just sometimes the skills, abilities, the physical traits don't always match up. For me, there's some players who I'm like absolutely nailed on, and others that I'm just debating back and forward. So I've got some that aren't even officially written down in my book. So like, hopefully it stays the same here, or I could just take a notion and go, no, they're them.
Yeah.
There's definitely been areas of the pitch that I found more difficult than others. And starting with goalkeeper, it's probably the position that's up there when it comes to ones that I just wasn't sure of. Not because like we don't have great keepers in this league, but you look at the stats and go, okay, that keeper has only conceded X amount of goals, or they've had this many clean sheets. But sometimes you don't see the great saves, and that's an element of it that also counts. So I'm gonna give you guys the hard part by telling me who you picked as your keeper, and then I'll hopefully back the one that I've written down.
Well, we've gone for Lawrence Rowan Ferguson.
And so have I. Was there any debate there? The reason I went for him is that I feel as though, bar the odd game that hasn't went great, he's been really strong, he's been really sturdy, and I've seen a couple of performances that I feel as though he stepped up and made some big saves. He's definitely a highlight reel goalkeeper, but also with such a brilliant back line in front of him, he's not always having to be called upon. You know, I think you can see there and see lots of Rory Brown great saves, but that's because he's got so many balls coming his way, and in turn you'd probably maybe highlight and go, he's the best player because yes, he didn't keep them all out, but in turn he's having to deal with such a poor defence. Kind of like the Jethron Barr argument that you would have had maybe a few seasons ago for Portadown, where the stats aren't great but the performances are there. So yeah, I went for Ferguson just because I think his performances in the big games. Was that in your head as well?
I think a mixture of that, and we wanted to kind of go to spread the love, which we're big believers in. So we went for one from each team, and I think when you look at Larne, so much of this season has been built on that solid defence. Rowan Ferguson, to go a bit deeper, I think has gone this season from being like a young keeper where it's like there's promise to actually being like a man now, where I think that he will have a very bright career. I know he's Scottish, so maybe we'll go back to Scotland at some point, because I mean he's a keeper, he'll probably play until he's like 1,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's very, very impressive. He doesn't seem to ever really lose his cool. He doesn't seem to ever feel like he's out of his depth or anything like that. He's just a solid keeper.
Do you want to go? So we've agreed on the first one. Happy days. I don't think we're going to. If you guys, I've picked a player, only one player from each team.
Yeah.
So right back or left back, I'll let you pick.
Let's go left back.
Gareth O'Rourke.
Ooh, strong choice. Why?
I think last season we started to see the best of Gareth for Crusaders. When he first came to the Cruise, I think probably seen him stand back a lot, but now he's kind of adapted his role to getting forward, getting involved in the action a bit more. But I also think he's turned into a really good defender. I think he's brought that into this season. I know we spoke earlier about maybe how the season's derailed a little bit for Crusaders, but I think he's still been probably the standout player for the Cruise, and that's probably why we've chosen him.
He doesn't get enough credit for what impact he has at the top end of the pitch, but like Addis, because he's made his way through teams at the lower end of the table with Dungannon, that perhaps they think as though they're more sturdy rather than what they can offer going forward. But I've seen him plenty of times adding that assist, even scoring himself. That's why he's in a really good fantasy team most weeks, like my own. But as much as I think he's had a great season, for me, from the left wing back, and there's an obvious reason why you haven't had this player in, I think it's Levi Ives. He has come up with goals, he's come up with assists, very much like O'Rourke has, but I just think he has such an impact and an influence on this Larne team. Micheál Glynn had a really strong end the last season trying to fill in for Ben Doherty when he went to Derry, who seemed to have a great season for Derry this season as well. But what Levi Ives has done is you can see why he's improved that position. He's more assured on the ball. He's there in the build-up play. He's there doing little triangles out wide. And again, he's taking the ball from deep up to attack, and he's a key component in both areas of the team. From defense to attack, he is vital. And I mean, he can deliver a variety of balls, great range of passing, has made some very key tackles running back to his own goal. I'll jump ahead and go to my right back. Probably feels like perhaps maybe an obvious choice. I hope not one that seems unimaginative. But I've picked this player because of, once again, their influence at the back as well as their influence going forward. They have made a number of assists, been a part of some key goals as well, and he's one of my favourite players in the league. And I think this season he's picked up where he left off last season at right back. I've went back to Larne and Tomas Cosgrove.
I mean, a class act. A really class act. I'm a big fan.
It feels like one of those things where you should stick Messi in your team of the season because he is good and he's in a team that's winning. For right back, I know it's not going to be a Larne player. Who you went for and why?
I think this is where we got a bit mixed up. We kind of have ended up with James Singleton.
Okay, yes.
I think he's been more when we spoke about Jarlath, but it was like maybe more obvious that the good work he did. Singleton's obviously been around the league for a while, but this year and any time I've seen the Glens, it's been obvious to me actually what he provides for that team. And sometimes what seems like quite an unsettled team, he's the captain, he is doing very, very well. He comes up with the odd assists.
If I was going to name you one of the three best Glentoran players this season, I think James Singleton is absolutely in it, maybe number one or two.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely right. He's a consistent performer. He's always getting stuck in at the back, having to play a couple of positions as well. He's had some key goal contributions. Again, a very regular member of the Kicking Man streamers. So I know that this guy is providing stats as well as great performances, and was probably a contender for me to fit into my team. I just think that more and more in the league, we see wing-back becoming actually a more prominent role. And at the minute, it's very prominent for Larne because that's where they're getting all of their width almost and a lot of their attacking outlay. And that's why I went for both those players. Moving inside, who have you went for? Because I can say it's my first non-Larne player.
Well, this is quite bold, but we've went Dean Curry and Danny Wallace.
Dean Curry and Danny Wallace. Obviously, Dean Curry is your Dungannon player. Danny Wallace is your Glenavon player. Yeah. So a lot of fireworks moving forward. Dean Curry coming back last season actually had a significant impact, I felt, on Dungannon's defence, as well as being someone who can do bits from set pieces and is one of the more solid pieces for the Swifts, I found.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is where we'll probably get going. Like with Dungannon, there are obviously, Matthew Lusty the last couple of weeks has been excellent. Ben Gallagher, I love Ben Gallagher. I think he's awesome. Like there are so many other pieces we could have gone for, but the one or two times that I've seen Dean Curry, I've just been like, there's Dean Curry, and actually he's obvious, and you're like, he's actually doing a great job. He does stand
out, actually, when you see them.
He's doing a great job. So, and he's beside Marin. Marin's obviously very good. We could have said Marin, but I think Marin gets the plaudits always, so that's why we're fancying a Curry.
My first centre back is a Linfield player, and is a player who came into the team during the summer. I've had people come onto this podcast and absolutely sing his praises. It's Eunice. Again, not a player who's very flashy or a player who adds a lot of highlight reel kind of plays, but I mean, I've just seen him be assured and confident, and as he's growing into the league and growing into games, Linfield have looked more and more solid at the back. He looks like he's had more confidence to build from the back and be a bit of a destroyer there. You know, he's not scared to dive into the tackle, but more importantly, I feel as though his marshalling and his positioning is often one of the reasons or one of the things that Linfield can build upon as they get forward. So for me, he's been one of the better players at the back for a team who's been very, very strong at the back, particularly in the past few weeks. Then when it came to my other player, it's one of the positions that I'm still half debating in my head, and it's probably between... There's a wee bit of me that goes, there should be Cliftonville representation here when we don't have the limitations you guys have. But in turn, it's been such a team performance. Maybe Addis, but he hasn't, like, for me, like, he's been great at times. But then I also look at Cian Bolger, who, as much as I don't think you would see like 17 or 18 games of absolute 5-star performance, I've seen it enough times to go, like, he is one of the best centre backs in this league. And we talk about attributes, oh my goodness, like what great physical attributes, being so tall and strong, and he's usually excellent from set pieces. I've seen the odd blip this season compared to others. I've also liked Aaron Donnelly as well. More of a player who can take the ball on. He's still sturdy, doing the boring stuff like, you know, defensive headers and all the rest. And then it's probably in there, which makes me lean towards Bolger, but it's probably going to be the one where I'm like, ugh, I want to be more artsy and inventive. But I can't deny it. I want this team. If this team was 1 to 11, Larne or Cliftonville or Linfield, it would be. But for me, I think he is probably right now one of the best centre backs, and I'd stick him in.
He is impressive.
I really like your Eunice pick, because I think when you think back to the summer, there was a lot of anxiety from Linfield fans around, we need a centre back, who's it going to be? I think when he came in, they might have thought, I don't know if this is the answer, but as you say, performances have been excellent and he's been a top performer, so I really like that pick. I think it's class.
Midfield, it's going to be a bit of a mire, usually is, for these combined 11s. I don't know where to start, so that's why I'm going to let you guys start.
How many do you have?
I see, again, I've got 2 nailed on centre mids, and right now it's going to be between, is it going to be 4-3-3, or am I going to make my in between? It's either going to be a third centre midfielder or it's going to be a wide player, and then I'm going to bring one of those wide attackers out. So I'm hemming in hand, and I'll probably explain it. I'll go with probably the easiest, one of the more easier picks in this team, and it's in centre midfield, and I know he pops up everywhere. What a season Rory Hale is having. He's scoring goals, he's creating assists, he is being dominant running. Give this man grass in front of him and the ball at his feet, and he will eat yards like it's going out of fashion. I mean, I'm not saying his brother not being in the team has helped him, but whatever it is, and I'm not saying his brother coming in has altered his performances at all, but this is a player who, particularly near the start of the season, took the team on his back and has been such a creator. All these goal scorers have so many of their goals to thank because of him. He has been a key assister, but also he's been, like he's always been for Cliftonville, a massive goal scorer, and is up there when it comes to the title of best player of the season so far, undoubtedly.
I have to agree. I mean, he is outstanding. When he obviously came back home and signed for the Cruise, you could tell at that stage, here's a really, really good player, but I just don't think the way the Cruise played, I think the ball, he was looking up most of the time as it went over his head. Now we're seeing the best of him with the ball at his feet, and he is outstanding. He is a very, very impressive footballer. We actually went for one of his teammates in Ronan Doherty, who I have been a fan of for years, and I don't think gets near enough the plaudits he needs. I think like 4 or 5 years ago, I kept texting me like, Ronan Doherty is unbelievable. And I think we're maybe seeing that now, or maybe he's just because maybe more eyes are on that midfield, he spreads passes. He is like unreal. I just think Ronan Docherty, that Cliftonville team's obviously great. He is a really key component in that team and the success that they're having.
Like top 5 most underrated players in the league.
Oh, 100%.
100%. I think because that team has the likes of the Hales and Gormley and everywhere else and previously, the Currans, I think he has gone under the radar, and he's definitely in that mix right now for me, and I may commit. And one of the big things which highlights to me how impressive he is this year, you talk about the eye test and then the stat test, and I don't like just giving players plaudits because of stats, but the amount of assists that he's had, I'm talking about how great Hale is for the assists and the goals. Doherty's doing the business as well, spreading passes from deep, getting out wide and bringing it in. A part of the improvement for Cliftonville this year has been from their midfield, and he's an absolute keystone to it.
I think the legs as well he has is just exceptional. Like the ground he covers in a game, we've even seen him the weekend, just how involved he gets. But your eyes naturally are maybe on the Rory Hills,
Not me.
Thinking. but genuinely, the next time you're watching highlights of Clifton, I'm saying this to the listener, or you're watching a game, just look for 17, and you'll see him get the ball on his feet and look up. And sometimes that can be the difference, the creator. So I'm actually going to write him down in pencil. As I told you, he was one that I'm thinking. The one that's absolutely in pen here, again, a player who perhaps isn't as sexy as other picks, but I think Cal McLean's having one of the best seasons of his career and is popping up with goals. I know there's going to be people out there who are going to argue this should be Chris Shields.
Yeah.
I do get that. And perhaps I'm being a prisoner of the now. And perhaps I'm not seeing all the passes that he's not making. But time and time again, when I see Linfield, I feel as though it's McLean who stepped up when Fallon's been out. And particularly this season, he's been a part of that midfield that has just been an absolute brick wall for them and is doing stats and doing great performances.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair comment. He is maybe someone that we probably thought would maybe go at some stage, and as this Linfield team is coming new, I think maybe even Linfield fans would have maybe not spoken about him as they maybe talked about their starting 11. He's been very impressive this season.
Yeah, he has. He's just chipping in all over the place.
So while I mull over if Rowan Doherty's making this a 3-man midfield, who else have we got in there? So we've got Rowan Doherty being your Cliftonville pick, which is bold. Yeah. Because there's so many Cliftonville players who could be in there. Who else we got?
Well, we obviously had to pick a Ballymena player. It's been a very difficult season for them. But I honestly do think a bright spark for Ballymena has been Frazer Taylor.
Oh, absolutely. Talk about a highlight player.
A really fun player to watch. Kind of like Messi-esque. Something Messi-esque about it.
It's kind of the moppy hair.
I think that maybe is what does it.
He kind of gets on the ball and it looks as though his head's bobbling. I don't know, he's doing like a Terminator thing. He's going, where am I going? And then he just pings in one direction. Always one where I think if you're not a Ballymena fan, you've watched it and goes, he's a bit good.
Yeah.
We should have him.
Yeah.
We should have him.
We were talking earlier, I remember saying, if he'd have gone somewhere else to another club in the league, we probably would have seen a wee bit more out of him. But that's football. That's where Ballymena are at. But he really does add something to them. We
were putting the team together, and that was the first name that I put down was Frazer Taylor. He's on loan from St Mirren. I have a real thing for Frazer Taylor, similar to Ronan Doherty, which has really influenced this midfield.
Big midfield.
But yeah, I think Frazer Taylor on loan from St Mirren, 19, 20 years old. He I don't know if he'll go back to St Mirren. I don't know what his contract's like. It seems like I know quite a lot about him. But I'm a big fan. If you can maybe connect me through this podcast to him, because I followed him on Instagram and didn't accept. If you're listening, let's hang out.
Well, I don't know if I've followed him or if he's accepted me, but well, the fact you put him in your team of the half season so far, like that can maybe be the thing that starts this off. He is a player who has so many flashy skills and ability. He can make runs. I'm sure there's loads of things that coaches will be like, just do this, just do that. He does sometimes get caught moving forward with it, just as you approach the box. But undeniably he has a spark and can have something. And I think you are kind of alluding to that. If it was in a team where there's players that he can find, if there's a players where that final ball could happen, it might look like a more complete performance. You could see more from him. And I guess it's probably the case of sometimes he's felt as though, maybe rightly or wrong, he's had to put Ballymena on his own back, a bit like Hale, and try and make things happen, because often it's him trying to drag the team when they're maybe two goals down. Let's move forward. What have we got now? Have we got wingers, or have we got what have we got? One more midfielder?
So this is an interesting one, because probably primarily see him as a striker, but we know he's a man that can adapt. We don't know it personally, but we think that about Conor McKendry. We've got him into the midfield, so I'm sure we could work that out somehow. But I mean, he's been an outstanding performer for Coleraine this season. It almost just seemed like maybe right at the very start of the season we didn't see the best from him, but then he just sort of burst into life. You think of the performance away at the Oval. I think he scored twice, maybe.
He looked good,
and he looked very good. And then from then on, he's probably been their most consistent player. So that's why he makes the team.
He is flashy as they come. He is a brilliant dribbler. He's a great carrier of the ball. Has got a wicked shot on him. I don't know if it was with yourselves that I was joking. Like, how many teams just let him prance into the box and then give him the space to grab a yard to wrap his left boot round it. And what he's added to his game this season has been a bit more consistency. I think many times you would see him pop for a couple of weeks, and then you think, where's McKendry gone? And he may be coming in or out of the team. He's been a player they've relied on this year, particularly with Matthew Shevlin stepping away, having suspension, having injury, and he has had some great goals, and he is just terrifying. No team wants to see McKendry running at them at pace, and that's why he also makes my team. He is one of the players that I'm playing just wide of a striker, nailed on, and it is probably because of the influence he's had from a goal scoring point of view. In many ways, he's moved slightly from that midfield role. Look, he probably plays out wide quite a bit, but he's almost move more central, which can often be a different skill set, different set of abilities, a way of playing, a way of learning. But I mean, he's just stepped up and been a big performer. This hasn't been a classic season for Coleraine, but it's definitely been a stellar season for McKendry. 9 goals sets him as the second half scorer in this league. So again, stats versus the eye test, definitely in there. If we're playing him wide for me, the other player I'm playing wide is, I think for many people, the first name in this team sheet, and that's Joel Cooper. I asked last week Johnny McNabb who his player of the season so far is, and he said without much thought, as in time to think about it, he said it's Joel Cooper. And he has been a player who scored incredible goals, has been a player who has been the provider for some really important goals for Linfield, and he has been one of, if not the star of the season so far.
No, that is true. I think we're actually probably seeing the best of him. And we talk, probably the team we've maybe made it a wee bit hard for ourselves because we've tried to go for one from each team, but he was a very obvious pick for us both. And we talk about, like we've talked about Ronan Doherty, we've talked about players in each of our teams who you want to watch clips of them. I think with Joel Cooper, he just has moments that break the internet. Like that Glenavon goal was
amazing.
And I always rate these kind of moments in the Irish League when someone who I know isn't an Irish League fan will send me something to be like, did you see this? Like, this is great. And that's it. That's what Joel Cooper offers. He's a wee magician.
I think I've pretty much got 10 of my players nailed in. I'm going to use this now as an opportunity to kind of say the player that has missed out. I think Rowan Doherty he's got his place. I think it's because he's been playing more consistently. He's been playing every week. But before I say the player who is the 12th player on this, my team at least, who else have you got? Because I think they might appear on yours.
So we've got Benji McGee.
Yep. I've so many brilliant things to say about him. Again, my 12th player, just because perhaps he hasn't been starting week in and week out. Another version of this team has Benji McGee out wide and Doherty out. But for you guys, I think when you're picking a player from Loughgall, he's nailed on one.
You're right.
Tell us what's the love about Al Benji?
I think some of the goals he scored this season, I think they've all been class. But I think he's a player that's probably destined for bigger things, based on his performances, and that's nothing on lock all, obviously.
Whoa. It's harsh, like.
Very harsh. But no, I do think, like, is there a chance of maybe him getting a chance at like full-time football, something like that? I don't know. It looks like he has that ability. So
21 years old, you know, up there with McHenry on 9 goals this year, and a lot of it has been coming off the bench, and I think that was just the thing that meant he missed out. For me, great goal scorer, brilliant on the ball. I still feel as though there's elements of his game that are just going to improve and would be an absolute contender for young player of the year. Saying that, a lot of these players we're talking about here are quite young themselves, but just such a brilliant player for Loughgall. And can we even just talk about his goal against Dungannon? Like, what a great shot he has on him, and just he got that goal out of nothing, really. Yeah. And he's the guy who scored the goal against Larne and elsewhere. So even the most optimistic Loughgall fan is probably not seeing Benjamin McGee as some sort of Matt Letizia player for them that's still playing throughout his entire career. But I think at that part of the table you need to find gems like that, and he is a gem. And I agree. I think destined is probably the right word to describe it. I think he'll be either a top 6 player or could maybe push on. Just has everything like you want from a player, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, finish off your team. Who have you still got to add?
So we have, for Linfield, we picked, I mean, Joel Cooper would have been the let's go, but we think Chris McKee's been excellent this season, so we've thrown him in there. I think the thing with Chris McKee is, I think last year it was probably quite frustrating for him at times because there was a lot of being on the bench, not maybe starting games. And I have a few Linfield friends, or Linfield fans who are friends, I should say. And you know, they always tell me he should have been starting week in, week out last year. And you know, I don't know what it was, why he didn't, but this year I think he's just shown how good he is, how capable he is, and he's shown why he was at Rangers in the first place. You know, Rangers B, brought that experience back with him now.
We talked about Benji McGee and how young he is and how great he is. Like, Chris McKee's sitting there, 21, and he's been playing under 21s football for Northern Ireland, and this season is exactly why he is getting goals oftentimes in big spots. It'll be now a decision to make for Healy. How does he fit in McKee and Fitzpatrick? Is it just going to have to be a case where they're fighting with each other between now and the end of the season? He doesn't make my team. I've only got one player to fit in, and it's a striker role, and I think you could argue one way or the other. Absolutely, you know, he scored plenty of goals this season, but I think my final player in there is probably not a surprise. It's Ben Wilson. He has got the stats with 14 goals, so that would probably be number one argument. Underline it, and that's where the argument ends. But I just think he has shown an ability to find space, score a couple of different goals from outside the box. He just got a really nice caressing shot, you know, and I just love to see him play, and has just been such a pickup for Cliftonville, a team that probably didn't need goals. They've really needed them this season, and he's been excellent. And you know, was out of the team on Saturday, and then he comes on and gets the goal. There's plenty of people who are shouting at the podcast saying, how have you missed out McKee? It's just a gut feeling here, and I've went for Wilson.
No, I agree. Like, Wilson has been excellent and came from relatively nowhere. I mean, I know he's on loan from Brighton, but there's another young player we're talking about. Like, we've got
22, you know,
where half of these lads are going to be in 5-10 years is just mad. You know, we could talk about maybe international some of them might make, or the Burnabout. Like, I definitely see Ronan Docherty there. So, you know, it is, yeah, you're right. Ben Wilson has a very bright future, and I don't know how Cliftonville have got him. Like, you know, it just seems to have come out of nowhere. It's fantastic.
There's teams that could have and maybe just didn't go for it, and Cliftonville backed him and gave him an opportunity, and they are reaping the rewards here. That's my team. You've got one more player to add. I have a notion who it might be.
We do. This is my favourite sign of the summer for any club, and it's Danny Purkis.
Yeah,
I think absolutely fantastic. At the time, I was honestly shocked. I was like, What a signing Carrick have made. This is unreal. This is a player who could easily play for any of the top 6 sides and could easily still play full-time football. I think the decision was his not to play full-time football.
And did last year and did not look out of place and came up with some big important goals. And he's been lost to Glentoran. Like they had to balance it out, but I mean, I don't think there's many fans of top 6 sides who would say, I don't need Perkis. I think they would love him.
Yeah, and I just, every time we've seen him this season, he can play a couple of roles for Carrick. He can play out wide to get the ball into, who's in the middle, Curtis Allen's in the middle or something, or he can be in the middle himself, getting the goals. So, I think he offers so much to Carrick. And, you think of Carrick maybe even 5 years ago and the squad they have now, like, Danny Perkis is like just way up there. Like what a signing. So that's why he makes the team. It was a no-brainer, that one.
One of the best players in probably the best Carrick Rangers team of the past 20 years. I don't want to say all time because I feel that's very ignorant of me, but absolutely could have been a contender there for sure for me. An excellent all-round player, not just his goals, but his build-up play for Carrick, and some wonder strikes as well from very, very far. It shows he has some brilliant vision, and it just shows you how the league's kind of turn around a wee bit. Look, there's been some players who, at the start of the season, you're saying are going to have a big influence. Leroy Miller, Fod Soulé, Ben Kennedy, and just for a variety of reasons, just haven't come to the fore, injury, etc., etc. So I think this is, I mean, if you showed this team to us 2 years ago, you're like, who on earth are these players? So that's exciting. I think if we showed our list for 2 years from now to us, I think we'd be like, oh yeah, cool. Benji McGee's still great and all that type of stuff. So yeah, it shows you that there's new talent coming through all the time, and I'm fascinated to see how these players take this, because they've got to do it all over again, because they've got 19/20 games between now and the end of the season. So just to wrap up, who was your team from 1 to 11?
So we've got Ferguson, Jarlath O'Rourke, Danny Wallace, James Singleton, Dean Curry, Ronan Docherty, Fraser Taylor, Conor McKendry, Chris McKee, Benji McGee, and Danny Perkis.
Also got Ferguson in nets, and then I have Levi Ives at left back, Tomas Cosgrove at right back. I went for Bolger at centre back with Ewan East from Linfield. It is Roy Hale from Cliftonville alongside his good old mate Ronan Doherty as well. And then you also add in Cam McLean from Linfield. Then up top, the three are on one side, it's Conor McKendry. The other side, you have Joel Cooper. And down the middle is Ben Wilson. Please go to the Kicking Match Instagram to share all your hate or love, maybe, but I'm sure you'll be calling me out for something. Right, a few games coming up as always to natter our way through. Big Bumper Podcast this week, and we are going to start on Friday night. It's going to be out there for our viewing pleasure, streamed down at the Oval, Glentoran against Linfield. We are sitting in a world where we don't know how Glentoran got on against Carrick in the Continental Shield, but regardless of that, we always say in some of these big games, form goes out the window. I don't think that's the case this time around. Linfield are loving life right now. Glentoran are very much down in the dumps. Another loss against their rivals will only make it a sadder rain cloud in East Belfast, methinks.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this. I can't see Glentoran getting anything out of this game. I mean, if there's any game you're going to get something out of, it's this one. But I think Linfield are just too strong for them. Glentoran are just too all over the place at the minute. So I think, are you wanting scores or?
Absolutely.
I think 2-0 Linfield.
I think that's probably the right answer, but it's kind of boring. I'm taking one of my friends who's never been to an Irish League game before to it on Friday night, and he is stoked. So I want action. I want that Heatley swinging arm. If Heatley can come down, just swing his arms at people. It is going to be like, I think we're getting to a situation now where there's a lot of heat on Feeney, and he's going to have to, show what he's made of. I actually think that that's probably where the Glens actually have to stand up. We've seen it rarely this season where Linfield can look a bit shaky. Probably won't happen, but I want it to happen and give us a thrilling 3-3.
That would be probably the game of the season if it ends up being that way, no matter who gets the final goal to draw it up. I actually think this is going to be a draw, which I think might be a shock to a lot of people. I just weirdly think that by hook or by crook, this is going to be a 0-0. Only because just Friday night, just the occasion against Glentoran, having played Ballymena last week and skipping out the weekend before that, and the last game before that, was it against Larne? I just think they may take their eye off the ball, perhaps, but that again, it's just a feeling, a vibe. However, all indications will be a healthy victory for Linfield. I think once one goal goes in against Glentoran, it will be plenty after that. We have not seen them step up to the mark when they're up against it, and I think if it's 1, it'll be 2, it will be 3. But I'm saying
3-3.
I have a gut 3-3, 0-0. Says me. Ballymena continue this toward run against top teams, against the informed team in the league. Larne come up to Ballymena. What is this? The whatever derby?
A1 Derby.
A1 Derby. I haven't thought of a silly name for this.
Shane's Hill Derby, isn't it?
I know. Last time I joked I want a silly name for this, and I decided it was the Slemish Skirmish.
Oh, that's better than anything I've ever heard.
So the Slemish Skirmish.
Get the poster made.
That's it. So I've got the North Coast Collision, which is Larne against Carrick, and now we've got the Slemish Skirmish between Ballymena and Larne. There should be like a weird, I don't know, pottery. Is there not like someone somewhere around there that does like nice pots or glass things, crystal or something? I don't know. My North Antrim knowledge is poor. Okay, yeah, Larne's winning this, aren't they?
Absolutely. Probably 4-0.
Yeah. Okay, I'll allow it. I mean, Frazer Taylor to shine, if we can say that. Frazer Taylor would be unbelievable in that Larne team.
Yeah, he would, wouldn't he? I don't know where he'd fit, but he could be good.
No, probably wouldn't start. But yeah, I agree. It could be a high scoring game. What, like you're saying, once one goes in against Ballymena, it goes quick.
Yeah. They've been relying on Sean O'Neill to marshal that defence and be a bit of a one-man wall in games against the bottom sides and the top sides, and I think he'll have a busy night again. I'm going to go for just 2-0 Larne. They look great going forward, but don't always get a whole load. Maybe I'll be wrong here, but if they're going to score a lot, it'll probably be against Ballymena. 2-0 for me. Carrick against Loughgall, a fun one, I must admit. It's one of those little styles mix fights and could just be a back and forward game. It was when it was at Lakeview. What will it be up at Taylor's Avenue at 3 o'clock on a Saturday?
It feels like it has 2 each written all over it.
Yeah, I agree. This is one where plenty of goals and it's drama till the very end.
I think Loughgall win this just because with Carrick you don't know, and with Loughgall they just do the unexpected. I just think 2-1 to Loughgall. Why not?
I really like the 2-2. I don't know if one team takes a lead, but I don't think that this is going to be a day for sterling defences. And not that they'll make massive mistakes. I just think both these teams are great going forward. So I can see them both getting a goal. And yeah, I just love that 2-2 prediction. Are you going to be as bullish when the Crews host Newry? This has to be a get-right game, regardless of injuries, regardless of bad form. If you're not getting a result against Newry at home, that is a bad patch if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, I think the Crews bounce back here. I don't know that it'll be pretty, but I think maybe 2-0.
I don't know. Well, just to ignite the room, and Newry win. No. I do see the Crews winning. I think they have to, but it won't be big.
I think this could be similar to the Loughgall game. The only thing I'm going to add a little twist to it, I think Newry score early. And it might take a while for Cliftonville to get the goal, but I think they'll get the goal and then finish it off thanks to, I don't know, would James Teelan be in the don't celebrate against your former club kind of territory? Probably not.
Would he play? Like, he seems to only get the odd minute.
I feel like this is the game where he'll start.
He'll come on and get something. So yeah, I think 2-1 Crews. Dungannon failing themselves 2 in a row. Oh look, here comes Cliftonville. I almost would feel better for Dungannon if it was a Solitude based on recent form, but it's not. It's a Stangmore Park. Like, they're going to have to score a goal, Dungannon, if they're going to get anything out of this, because I don't see Cliftonville drawing a blank here, particularly against that Swift's back line. I'm going to say 3-1 probably to the Reds.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the Cliftonville win, but I think it'll be a wee bit tighter. I don't know. I just think Dungannon, they don't get their just rewards maybe all the time, but I think 2-1.
No, I don't see Dungannon scoring. I think it'll be 2-0, probably, yeah.
And finally, can Glenavon keep this run up when they go against a top 6 side in Coleraine? Usually, Glenavon have been a bit of a scud for Coleraine. There's been games going back and forward. Usually, it's at the showgrounds, but on this occasion, it's at Mournview Park. It's just so hard to predict Coleraine, and usually where they're slipping up is against the bottom 6 sides, but I guess this is the best bottom 6 side they could face. They could only muster a draw against Carrick at home. Not to be boring again, I think this might just be a bit of an awkward 0-0.
I'm going to go 1-0 Glenavon. I think they're keeping that form going, and given how Coleraine have gone of late, I think it's probably not a good time for them to play Glenavon.
I agree. I think Glenavon probably will win this as well. What is it? Winning breeds winning or something like that. In confidence. I think that was Shakespeare. Yeah, I see another Glenavon win here.
If Glenavon win, they'll be even points with Coleraine, and of course they can change that goal difference, but it's a 5-goal swing. They would probably require, as in they would. No, actually it'd be 3 because they're against each other. So yeah, there is a situation where Glenavon jump above Coleraine, and then that would be a very sticky, icky situation. We're kind of in that part of the year where like it's getting really cold and all the rest. So fingers crossed we have another nice full game week of games. We haven't had a call off for a while, but big bumper, big fun episode this week, guys. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Of course, you guys, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you are well aware of the Waffle, but in case, I don't know, there's new listeners, or there's like your friend, I don't know, there's some other person that's like, what's this? This isn't the new album from that rock band that names their album Kicking Match or something. Who are you? What are you? And how can they find more about you?
That's very kind. Well, we occasionally put out podcasts that are not as well produced as this. This is very impressive what Pete has put on this evening, so keep listening to this. This is awesome. We do some Instagram things and TikTok we've recently started. They're not great.
You recently sold out to the league, is that right?
We are putting our heart on the line for them.
Yeah, like we shared joint posts with Niffle. That's pretty good.
It's good, yeah. I think. I mean,
I'm just jealous.
No, it's true. It is good. It's very different to what we're used to doing. You know, we're not probably people that like or are used in any way to be in front of a camera, so it has been weird. John's brought a selfie stick along a few times.
I'm trying to bring it back. You know,
it never went away.
Did it only for you?
Oh, just maybe me then.
But yeah, no. So thank you for having us, and a big happy birthday to you from everyone.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's actually today, so huge. Everyone that's listening to this, it's like happened there on the Tuesday of either this week or before. Just the way like schedules happen, that we all could come together rather than, which is why the podcast is a wee bit late this week. It's not because I don't know, I waited a day late just so I could hang out and have
on
coffee
your birthday
and have wee sweeties. There's no whiskey in this coffee, mainly because I just don't like whiskey. But guys, it's been a pleasure. For everybody else, go follow them. Until next time, cheerio.
Bye bye.
It's an empty living room sitting in front of me. I've got 2 microphones and 2 empty chairs. The boys are away. Otherwise, this would kind of be weird just talking to myself and the little post-pod show. I hope you enjoyed it this week. A little bit different, a little bit more fun. I always like throwing a couple of voices in there. And sure, you know, it's going to be crowd-pleasing when you invite the boys from the Waffle into the podcast, into my house, so I can share and have a few cups of coffee and the rest. That's genuinely what we had this week. But thank you very much for listening. You know, if you enjoyed that and you'd like to find out a bit more, you can follow this podcast on @KickingMatch on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you happen to have your phone or your computer in front of you, you know what you can do is you can follow this podcast on whatever your player is. Might be Apple Podcasts, might be Spotify. You can hit follow, you can hit subscribe, and it means on weeks like this, where I'm recording a wee bit later in the week, just today, it means you're not sitting there going, why is the podcast not there? Because you can sit back and relax and go, once it's up, I'm going to get notification, and then I can listen to it and have a good time. In fact, you may get a notification on your phone or your computer and go, great, it's out. Sit back, relax, and go, hey, smart speaker, please play the latest episode of Kicking Match, an Irish League podcast. You see, I'm here to make your life easier. Unfortunately, I've got no ideas what you're going to give your partner for Christmas, but you know, we'll get there together. It's hard. It'll be fine. Something will pop up. Just don't leave it the last day. You know what I mean? Anyway, you have been a gift this week. Thanks for listening. Toodles!